Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Unleashed with Carrie. My guest today is Dr. Linda Hodges, and she has a really unusual school story. She talks about how school was kind of a break or a respite from what was going on at home, but at the same time, it really wasn't a perfect world. Linda is super successful. She's a physician in Iowa. She's triple board certified. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah.
In internal medicine, critical care medicine, and obesity medicine. She works currently in the ICU, but she also has a weight loss program, which was in a clinic and has since turned online. And she has written a book, Weight Loss That Works: Secrets to Restoring Confidence and Reclaiming Your Body. She's a mom, 2 kids, a 9 and a 17-year-old. So she is super successful, and I think this is really the first time she's coming on to share her school story. Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks.
Yeah.
You're super successful. I imagine you're super busy. So what's a day in your life look like?
So it just depends. Every day is different. Whenever I call and schedule an appointment for my hair or for the dentist, they're like, what day looks good for you? I'm like, I don't know. It's different every day. Just tell me what's open and I'll tell you if it works. So my job in the ICU, I only work nights. So the next day I could have patients in the clinic, I could have some coaching calls, or I could be sleeping. So I still man the ICU, work exclusively nights. My shifts are longer, so I don't have to do a whole lot a month. So that's really good. But my day could be filled with either resting up and recovering from night shifts, to errands, getting things done around the house, to, having my coaching calls, to doing my writing, working on my business, to just seeing patients in my private clinic. So
that's crazy.
Every day is different.
Usually I ask this much further down the road, but I'm just going to ask now, what habits or rituals do you have that just keep you grounded and chugging along with kind of the chaos? I'm not saying chaos is a bad thing, but
I thrive in chaos, I think.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting that you asked that, actually, because that's one of the things that I go in with my my coaching patients or my coaching clients on, is that, the stuff that sets us up for success in one area of our life is the same stuff that's going to set us up for success in other areas of our lives. So it's routine, having as many things automated as I can possibly have, doing the same thing in my private life day after day. So I feel proud of myself. So I, can check off my little boxes. My work life may be different every single day, but I try to, work out every day. I try to, do some gratitude journaling every single day, give thanks for all the things that are going on in my life, even when sometimes they're, blessings in disguise. I mean, so all of those things, I have to check my little boxes to keep myself functioning optimally. And that's kind of what I preach to everyone else too. There's always the background operating systems that have to be in place.
Yeah. For you, I imagine it's a challenge because, most people will ground themselves in that morning routine and check off all those boxes, or most of them, in the morning routine. But for you, I feel like it's going to be different every day.
It is. It has to. And that's one of the things that I struggle with a lot, because if, I have to still maintain the things that work for me, even if, for example, this morning, I worked 3 nights in a row. So yesterday I didn't get much sleep coming off of night shift. So today is kind of where I feel it. So my alarm went off at 7 and I had the best of intentions and it just wasn't going to happen. It's always that second day. And so I told my husband, I'm like, I got to go back to bed for a little bit. And I didn't get up until almost 10. And then after that, I just had to jump right into getting things done for my calls that started at noon. And then working out after that. So it's still, the things still have to happen, even if they're not going to happen the way that I would like for them to. I would have loved to have gotten up at 6 a.m, got it, had it all done. But I also know that I have to go with the flow sometimes, because it just doesn't work that way with my schedule.
Yeah. And you have to take care of yourself. Sleep and food and water, in my mind, are the pillars of health. And if you're not sleeping, then everything else starts to go out the window.
Yes, it's become even more apparent as I get older, just how important sleep is. And, and I preach it to my patients and my clients all the time, but at the end of the day, you got to do what you got to do. But yes, it's become a little bit more of a priority as I get older.
Yeah. And, I work with teenagers with ADHD and anxiety. A lot of them have sleep troubles. I had sleep troubles all my life. I was diagnosed with sleep disorders. Actually, it's been better into my adulthood, but I definitely still go through bouts of not sleeping. But I feel like a hypocrite because I tell my teens, turn off those devices like an hour before bed. And to fall asleep, I usually listen to a TV show.
Right.
But for me, it settles my mind. I'm not like watching it. I'm not staring at the light. It just settles my mind. But really, I should probably practice more of what I preach.
I think we all should. But
so tell us about your weight loss clinic and book and all of that.
so yeah, that's just a whole. I'm what you call one of multi-potentialite. So I like everything. I always joke that I like to do all the medicine. But my weight loss program started in 2015 with a brick and mortar clinic. And since then, I've started another clinic that kind of took over my life for a long time. And I moved 99% of my weight loss patients, clients all online because I had a really good service. I had a protocol that we used for everybody, even though it was an individualized program, the steps we took were the same to find out where people needed to be and what they needed to do. And so I essentially took my service and my protocols, turned it into a book. So I turned it into a product and then turned it into an online program. So I've moved all of my patients online at this point.
And have you expanded your geography doing that?
Oh yeah, it's national. Yeah.
That's amazing. Basically what I'm doing with my business, I used to tutor kids after school and I would drive around town and it wasn't sustainable. And I couldn't meet their needs because I could only see them once a week at a set time. And sometimes it worked, sometimes there was something they needed to practice or work on and other times there wasn't. And just the whole online world is a whole new ball game.
Yeah, because you can reach so many more people and your impact with these people is so much greater, with the internet being available to us. It's amazing that people that desperately need, there's people that are going to do well with other people's weight loss programs and that's great. But,
right.
The people that are going to do well with mine, I can reach so many more of those people doing it this way than I ever could seeing them one-on-one in the office.
Yeah. So you mentioned coaching calls. I assume that's part of the weight loss program.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And how does that work?
So I have two different programs. I still do some one-on-one coaching, which is kind of a premium service. But the main thing is a group. It's a 12-week group coaching program. So weeks 1 through 8 is, they get video modules, and we focus on, taking back control of their lives. The first thing I have people do is we recognize what they really do and do not have control over, because I feel like when we're blaming ourselves for every single thing, none of us succeed very well in that environment. So we kind of take a step back. In the first 3 weeks of the program, we don't even talk about food hardly. We talk about our expectations of ourselves, what's happened in the past, what can we learn from the diets that have not done well, what can we learn from ourselves, our routines. We go into everything from, does your income affect your food choices? Does your income affect, or does your schedule affect, how you can prep and plan your meals? So, because my main thing is anybody can hand you a meal plan, but if it doesn't work for you, then it's not going to work for you. So we have to actually dive deep into each individual person's history with dieting, history with weight loss and gain, and what their lives are like to find out the exact prescription, for eating and exercising that those people need to be the most successful. Because it doesn't matter what worked for Susie down the street.
Right.
Absolutely doesn't matter. So that's what we do.
It sounds like there's a big mindset component.
Oh
there.
My gosh. Everything, On the bottom of my book, my slogan is weight loss starts with your mind, not with your behind. So that's, every success starts between the ears, right?
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's kind of how my business evolved as well. I would get tutoring requests for, an academic issue. And really what I found more and more, it was teaching issues and just students having a mindset of, gosh, I'm lazy, or this is too hard, or I'm not smart enough for this. But really, once we start to make those mindset shifts, it's amazing the potential that opens up in front of us.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you don't even know the blocks that we have, you just, I don't know. I feel like the cosmos just opened up sometimes and you just like, oh my gosh, I had no idea of the possibilities of whatever it is. It doesn't even have to be weight loss or teaching. It's just, there's a whole big world out there if we just get rid of all of those
Yeah.
blocks that we have.
Yeah. And it's so hard to find them though. Like, you tell yourself the stories about yourself and about the world, and you listen to them, and you don't even realize that they're stories that can be changed. I'm
Right.
now at the point where I know they can be changed, but I'm not sure what are the ones that need to get changed in my own life. So I'm
Right.
still sorting through that. And I think we always should be sorting through all that.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So let's rewind.
Okay.
Let's rewind to your young life. You're a victim of trauma,
Hmm.
and how school played into that, and just what that picture looked like for you.
So yeah, I've been wanting to talk about this for a really, really long time because I feel like, and I didn't even know that I wanted to talk about this until I taught school the year that I was applying for medical school. It was kind of funny. We moved to this really small town in Missouri, and I love push mowing the lawn. So I'd push mowed our lawn, and I was in cutoffs and like a cutoff shirt. You cut the sleeves off. I mean, I was horrible. And I walked into the local school. In the summer, all your schools are open. Everybody's asphalting things. The teachers are cleaning out stuff. So you just kind of walk in, and I asked for an application to substitute teach because I knew I wasn't going to have a job during the application cycle because you apply to med school the year ahead of time. And I found the principal and kind of explained, hey, I'm waiting to get in med school. And he goes, so what do you want to do? And I said, well, I'd like to substitute teach. I'm doing this and I don't know. Well, you're going to med school? We don't have a science teacher this year. And I walked out with like a full job. So it was a great year. But man, it was challenging from just, I had no idea that kids and teaching and everything had changed so much since I went through school.
Yeah.
But the first thing that started to happen, I was cleaning up my classroom and getting things set up, when school was about to start. And almost instantly, teachers started coming to me, introducing themselves, having the best of intentions, and I think, just being a physician, everybody gets stressed, everybody's overworked. And I understand that 100%. But I started getting these little warnings about, who the kids were that were typically problems, who had bad families. And after several of those conversations, it occurred to me that, oh my God, I was the kids that they were talking about. I was the kid that probably got warned, the other teachers got warned about. And it never even occurred to me that kind of the links between my, second through fifth grade years probably had some of this involved in it. And it was just, I don't know, just kind of knocked me right on my butt when I realized this. As we moved in elementary school, we moved in the middle or the last part of my second grade year to a new school. We bought a new house. My mom had twins. And so we just had a bigger family. We needed a bigger house. And it was just not, I was such a quiet kid. And so I wasn't like the problem kid. I was quiet, barely spoke. And almost day one at this new school, I had a teacher that was very stern. And I only remember one specific incident with her because I was so traumatized by it. I don't know, do you want me to just tell you kind of?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So, we had the kind of desks that were open and you stuck your stuff inside like a box. And then one side was open, you stuck your stuff inside. And I was a messy kid. I didn't have any order to my life and at home, at school, anywhere in my life. So I was just not an organized kid. I'm barely an organized adult at this point. But so she looked inside my desk and saw how messy it was. And she asked me to scoot back. And so, I didn't know what was coming. So I scoot my table or my chair all the way back. And she walks around to the front of my desks and she dumps it out onto the floor in front of the entire class. Just dumps my entire desk at my feet. And I didn't cry. I was refusing to cry, but I just sat there staring at my stuff. And she just said, now clean it up. And she walked off. And I don't remember anything after that,
Oh my
because I was
gosh.
so humiliated and embarrassed. It was just, I focused on whatever I had to do. And that is my only memory of that entire year of dealing with that teacher.
Wow.
Yeah, it was, it's to tell the story, it seems so little, but, I was a girl who was being, sexually abused by her father. I had a broken home. It was not a good situation. Actually, my stepfather, not my father, but it was not a good situation. And of course she didn't know any of that, but still it was just a recipe for, um, it probably affected me more because of all the stuff going on in the background had it, otherwise. So
Sure. And I mean, that is totally humiliating.
yeah,
And I can just imagine that's probably what you were thinking about for the rest of the school year.
I was scared to death of her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Scared to death of her. I mean, she wasn't someone that I could, and I don't really remember kindergarten and first grade real well. I remember some things like happy things, and I had a best friend at the old school that we were at. So I have more positive memories of that other school. But this new one, it just started off wrong. And I just was not, looking back at myself now, at my little self, I just felt like I was not a likable kid. I wasn't the kid that you expected much from. I was easy to ignore, easy to just kind of overlook, unless my desk was messy, and then I attracted a lot of attention, evidently.
So you said that, you were probably the kind of kid that teachers would tell stories about or warn about. Now, especially that you've taught, what do you imagine those conversations would have looked like about you? Like, did those comments ever run through your head?
Um, I assume that I don't know. Other than, I mean, because I have a hard time seeing myself then, but I was the kid who, I mean, I always needed my hair cut or needed it combed. I never had clothes that fit me. Um, when I first started being abused, I know I gained weight really quickly. So I was overweight. And you could just tell I was always late to school. I never could get to school on time. And I was always disheveled, just not put together. Um, and so I was just the kid that I think, based on how these other teachers talked about me, I can just imagine them just assuming that I wasn't going to go very far in life, and just, I don't know how they would say anything bad about me, because I never really misbehaved, but just an underlying, not a whole lot of time was devoted,
Yeah.
if that makes any sense.
Did any teachers ever kind of reach out to you as far as what's going on, or like, is there a problem we need to solve?
No, not even once. And it's interesting, because in my first grade, older school, which I had good experiences at, a long time ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago, I came across, my mom saved everything. So I came across all of my report cards, and reading all of the report cards, because of course everything was handwritten back then. I looked at all of the comments that my first grade teacher had written, and I thought to myself, how do you not look into this further? How do you make comments about, Linda's withdrawn, does not participate in class, concerned about, I mean, how do you write things like that without looking into it? And so I was really angry, and I wish I would have saved them, but I was so mad when I read them that I threw them away, unfortunately. But,
Wow.
but no, nobody ever reached out to actually ask if anything was going on.
That's so scary to me. And just to think that, you were not the only kid in this situation, and not that we should assume that something bad is going on, but like you said, it should be looked into. Or at least, if you're withdrawn, what can we do to get you more engaged? What can we do to get you learning better? Not just being someone
Right.
who sits there.
Right.
Um,
In my grades are okay. I mean, I was a BC student. I was pretty average, There wasn't anything like I wasn't failing that didn't, call for any attention. It was just, I was just there,
Yeah.
I was just there.
Yeah. Now I feel like a lot of the time having C's isn't even okay. It's not even average. At least in people's minds, I was working with a student the other day who was trying to explain that he got a B without using the word B. And it was just like, well, it was kind of a crummy grade. Like, no, a B is a good grade. It's above average. No,
Right.
it's not. It's a B. Like, A's the normal.
Right.
We kind of all have this expectation that we need to have A's all the time, and that's just not reasonable for most people.
Right. Right.
Any other significant stories
Oh my
about
gosh.
school?
Oh yes. Yes. So that was second grade. That happened with the desk. Third grade. Third grade was horrible. And I laugh because now all you can do is laugh. You look back and just like, okay, what else am I going to do? But one incident in third grade, she was an older teacher, and she was the teacher that, all the kids that were older than you warned you about. Oh my God, she's so mean. And so you're scared of her before you even go in. So, one of the things that happened there, my mom and my stepdad fought a lot, and there was one incident, and this gal just, I don't know, I hate to say she picked on me because I'm not like a victim type of person, but when you're a kid and you really have no adult insight, you kind of know when somebody doesn't like you, you kind of feel it. And so I knew that. I got that from her right away. And so there was one incident where I don't remember this specifically, that like I didn't have my work turned in a lot, but from what she said, I'm assuming that was a problem for me. And so my mom and stepdad had gotten in a huge fight, and my mom took off before dinner, and she, just to drive around, she didn't like leave us or anything. And my stepdad was so obsessed with where she went, he piled us all, my brother and my sisters, all into the car, and we drove around town looking for her for hours. Like, we got home at like 10 or 11 at night. And so the next morning, and then we went right to bed. The next morning I got to school, didn't have my homework done. She called me back to her desk, wanted to know exactly why I didn't have my homework done again, or this time, or whatever she said. And I tried my hardest not to show emotion, to just try to get out of the situation. And she eventually just was yelling at me so much that I told her exactly what had happened. I told her everything that had happened. And she just got real quiet and let me go back, sit down. And I thought, oh my God, finally, maybe she has a little bit of sympathy for me. Maybe maybe I get a pass on this one. I can turn it in tomorrow. And nothing else was said. And then I got home, and come to find out, she had called my mom to verify my story.
Oh my gosh.
And to make sure I wasn't lying. And then when I got home that night, I got one of the worst spankings I had ever gotten for telling our personal business to a stranger. It was horrible. And I have a couple of stories with that teacher, but again, it's all context. If you have somebody who's not going through what I was going through at home, it's still awful to be mistreated by anyone. But it took my away time from home, my escape from what was happening to me at home, and it made even that not an escape anymore, that's what I lost and what I mourned.
Yeah. So did you ever experience a change in school being a better place or a safer place for you? Obviously you did well academically somewhere along the way because you're a doctor, you're doing good things in the world.
Yeah, so it wasn't, so fourth grade was a little bit better, not a whole lot better, but a little bit better. And fifth grade, I had kind of a teacher that I would just straight up call a snob. And I didn't care for her much, but everybody wanted to be liked by her. She was just this charismatic person. But that year was particularly hard because my mom was diagnosed with brain cancer. So while all of this was going on to me, my mom gets sick. And, but it wasn't, so, that all happened. And my mom ended up passing away when I was 16. I was a sophomore or junior. And and I was still a C student. I mean, some things I did well in, but I just didn't care. I had other things on my mind. It wasn't, I was surviving and getting through and wondering how the hell I was going to make something of my life, because people who grow up how I grow up tend to automatically assume we're not going to be anything. So I went to college and actually did okay in college after a while, after I finally got my head on straight. But it wasn't until I met my husband, who was, to me, the first person that was obvious, saw something different, like believed in me, that saw how strong I was, and of course knew all of this about me, and saw, you know, how I persevered and that there's a lot more to go here. And it wasn't until I met him and just some conversations with him that I was like, okay, this is, so even though I graduated from college with an average degree, still didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought, all right, let's try to do something. And I said, well, maybe I'll go to med school. And it was like the worst, not the worst, the scariest thing I've probably ever said in my life, to put that out in the world. And without missing a beat, this always makes me tear up a little bit. Without missing a beat, he said, that's the best idea I've heard. And I was just, I was like, and that's when, I mean, my whole life changed, like that moment. And so I had to go back to school and take all the classes that I was too much of a slacker to take the first time around. And I ended up with almost like a 4.0 in those the next time, and applied to medical school, got in my first try. And I remember one of my interviews for med school, I was thinking about this guy just the other day, actually. He said, he's looking at my transcripts and he's like, something happened between here and here. And then he goes, and someday maybe I'll know the story, but I know there's a story there. And I just kind of sat there proud thinking, yeah, there's a story.
There's definitely a story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you said in high school, you really had no aspirations. What was that like? Like, were you thinking about jobs? Were you thinking about college, or was there literally just no future on your mind?
I think I probably thought about things, but I never thought I was good enough. I mean, because you always have those kids in high school that you know are going to go far. You know, you just know. And so I would talk to other people and know what, you know, this person wanted to do or this person wanted to do. And instantly in my head, I would think to myself, oh, that's not something I could ever do. And so, no, I honestly did not. I had no plan. I had no plan.
Were there ideas you had that you had written off?
No.
Okay.
Nothing remotely serious.
No.
No.
I feel like what you're saying right here is really relevant to a lot of my audience, because we're always asking kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And like, they don't even know the half of the world that's in front of them. Like, not really even a quarter. And I think it's almost more common than not. I don't want to say to be ambitionless, because I think that has a negative connotation, but to just not be aware of what's next.
Right.
Do you remember what that felt like?
I do. It was assuming that I assumed that my life would be a struggle. I assumed that I would continue, kind of like we were not wealthy. We were very poor. We were on welfare. We had food stamps when I was little. My mom was sick and dying. I mean, it was like the worst that, you know, probably you could have had it. I'm sure there's people that have it much worse, don't get me wrong. But at that point in time, that was my thinking. And I just kind of took it at face value that my life would probably end up being like that as well. I mean, I didn't, you know, I went the first time I went to college, I ended up failing out because I couldn't function. I had so much anxiety and depression, and had to end up going to a community college and then back into a university. So it's been a long roundabout road, because I had things that I had to deal with if I wanted to grow. And so part of that started to happen way before I met my husband, and that transformation took place. But it was little things along the way that I knew even if I wanted to maintain a minimal level of functioning, there were some things that I had to do. And somewhere inside me, I don't even know how I knew that. I just knew that. And so I went after that. I turned in my abuser, went through a whole trial. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison, lost my entire family with that, my brothers and sisters. And I've just kind of been on my own ever since until I met my husband. But I always, before all of that started to take place, if we talk about the high school years, no, I just assumed that I would continue the legacy that I had been shown of struggling and not having abundance and always being in a mode of scarcity. And I knew that I didn't want that, but I had no idea that there was another option for me.
Sure. It's just crazy. Like I'm always interested in this to find out where inside you find that strength to go on. Like, especially if it doesn't come from someone reaching out and pulling you along and, rescuing you, helping you, whatever, till you're able to do it on your own. Like, how do we find that inside of us?
I have brought that up with my therapist so many times because I was actually for a long time really obsessed with it. What makes somebody that had the history that I had become, addicted to drugs and, suicidal or whatever versus me being as successful as I've been? What's the difference there? And she would always just say, you're a dandelion. Orchids, if you were born an orchid, they wither and they can't stand the storm, but you can't be killed. And so it's like, well, that's a good analogy, but lately I'm just wired like that. I don't know. It was kind of this twofold thing happening in my brain, even when I was growing up and all of these horrible things were happening to me, of I'm not going to be anything, but I know there's more for me. And somehow that just won out, and I don't know how.
Wow. So. And your story, I mean, most of the people that I have on here have a story similar to yours in that, there was abuse, there was addiction, there was homelessness, and still they find that way to go on. One of the people I had on here, his name was Bryce McKinley. He says, you have to be willing to do what other people won't do to get what you want. I think I'm misquoting that a little bit, but that just always struck with me as so powerful. Like, if you really want to rise above, you've got to do what the masses aren't willing to do. Put in the work, put in the time, whatever that thing is that you need to do to move on.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
So you said you struggled with anxiety and depression. What did that look like for you? That was in...
Oh, that's been, obviously with my past, it's lifelong.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
But it just came to the point where that first couple years after high school, I was not functional at all. And actually I want to go back to how you asked me if I had just a nothingness and like nothing plan, or I don't even remember how you worded it, because I think now when I look back, I can explain it a little better than looking at it from that point. Because now, like I have a 17-year-old daughter who's thinking about her future and all of these things. I'm like, well, we need to expose yourself to these things. You have to expose yourself, do a couple hours with this job and a couple hours with this job. So she's setting up the stuff. And I didn't start medical school till I was 27 years old. I was 5 years behind what, the typical medical student starts, after college. And I'm fine. I could not have done it at 22. There's no way. And I don't even understand how an 18-year-old right out of college can make that huge commitment anyway. I just think that's so huge. So, I don't worry about my kid not having exactly, what she wants to do. I don't even worry about, I'm trying to get her to even take a gap year to figure some stuff out and to have some experiences before she makes this huge commitment, because I feel like, how does one do that at such an early age? I truly just don't know. But anyway, yeah. So I feel like looking back, I can explain them a little better than
Yeah, well, you jumped the gun. I was totally going to ask you how you use those experiences in your journey as a parent and with your patients and your weight loss program. Um, and I just keep going back to that point where it looks like, or can look like, a lack of ambition, but really, I guess it's more of a lack of relevancy. The kids don't have the experiences to make those decisions, and because they don't have the experiences, they may not have that drive and that desire. Do some? Sure. But I also question where that's coming from because they still don't have the experiences. So
Right.
some may be zoned in on something, but it may not be the best thing to zone in on because they're still lacking the experiences.
Right. And I think, I think one of a prime example of that is my best friend from medical school. She wanted to be a surgeon. I mean, that was one track mind the entire 2 years that we were together doing our classroom work. And I did not want to be a surgeon. It was not even like remotely something I was interested in. And her first rotation medically was one of her first rotations was surgery. And she had a horrible experience, so horrible that she completely wrote it off wanting to be a surgeon. I had an awesome experience and ended up matching into a surgery program for residency. It was so positive. And I tried to convince her, come up and rotate at my hospital, have a completely different experience. But it ruined her on wanting to do that. So I think, if we can expose our kids to so many things, as many things as possible as they're growing up to help them make that decision, that's great. And I know that that's also a point of privilege for some, and other people just don't have access to a lot of things. But I don't know, I guess that's another reason too why I'm trying to encourage my daughter to take a year off before we commit to a university
We're having an internet glitch.
head that you see every day.
Yeah, yeah. I think that we need to give kids the opportunity to explore, and that learning from a book is not nearly the same as learning in the real world. I'm
Oh,
glad
yeah.
I'm glad we have the option of learning a lot in books because we don't necessarily have the time and the place to learn everything through
Yeah.
direct experience. But I think there needs to be more of a balance than there is for sure.
Oh, sure. Definitely. Well, and, you know, their kids are, I mean, this is a whole other conversation that we could have, but they're so overextended with sports and activities that just having those, hey, I met so-and-so and had this experience and they told me to come by. I mean, those natural, like serendipitous things just don't happen. We don't give ourselves a chance for that to happen, hardly anymore. And that's unfortunate.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, kids are getting home at like 8 or 9 o'clock at night and then having to do homework still. Um, Not to mention the projects and then the studying and projects over breaks, and they never get a break, not really.
Right.
And then how do your experiences kind of inform your care model as a physician or in your weight loss program as well?
So my entire mission in life is, and I don't have a big statement prepared for this, but my entire mission with everything that I do is I don't want anyone to ever feel how I have felt. Irrelevant, like nothing, like they don't have choices. And um, sorry, the biggest one is I don't want anyone to ever feel trapped in their own situation. And so every single thing that I do, I try to point out, just like weight loss, it can be as simple as, somebody going to a holiday party and they feel like, well, this is what's going to happen and this and this and this, and I'm going to, ruin my diet and start over the next day. Okay. So they feel trapped in that scenario. And so we just back it up and point out different choices and different options and different, methods of dealing with whatever they're going to have to deal with. And so they don't feel so trapped. So they don't feel like they have that beeline to failure that has been dictating their dieting forever. And so I try to take I don't try, I just do it. I try to take everything from that perspective of, is this person feeling trapped? Are they trapped? No, of course not. None of us really are, but they don't know that. And so that feeling of being trapped, not having choices, and then feeling anxious and like they don't have control, that's what I target with everything.
Yeah. I mean, I work on that with my students too, is, oh, I got a bad grade, or I'm not going to get through this class. Well, let's look at what you can control here.
Right.
You can't control the grade your teacher gives you, but you can control the work that you do. I feel like we just have a lot of parallels in our practice.
Well, I think there's a parallels in everything. And I think that's a lot of times we fail to make those connections. One of my things that I do with my weight loss stuff is I encourage people to incorporate skills they already have. Are you really good at, doing your calendar for your family? Can you like fit things in your day that I can't even imagine because I'm not that person? But if you are, you're going to be great at meal planning and prepping and shopping and figuring out your plans. If you're good at telling your kids, putting limits and saying, hey, you've had 2 hours on the iPad and we need to set some limits, you need to take that skill set and point it towards yourself. We already have so many skill sets and parallels that we use in all of our lives and all of our jobs that can be transferred to make us more successful in other areas.
Yeah. It's so much easier, I think, to use those skills for others or for other purposes, but then it's a lot harder to turn it back and reflect to ourselves. I know I struggle with self-accountability. Like, I'm not terrible by any means, but I'm definitely much more accountable to what I have to do when it involves somebody else. When it involves myself, it's a lot easier to just break that promise, or, oh, I'll do it tomorrow.
But that's why we have coaching.
Yes,
Somebody
exactly.
to hold us accountable. Yeah.
Exactly. Which is, I think where we both come in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I have life coaching and business coaching and therapy. I mean, we can't see our own selves a lot of times because life is so busy. And so when other people can see me and give me a quick kick in the pants and save me months and months of trying to figure out a problem, sign me up.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I work with a business coach, and at first I was so resistant to the idea. First, it's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. Second, I'm like, I can do it on my own. But I wasn't. I had ideas, but I wasn't really implementing anything, or I would like in spurts here or there, but never consistently. And the learning curve, when you bring someone else into the equation to help you, the learning curve is just skyrockets. Or I guess, yeah, skyrockets. You don't have to take the time to read all the stuff or take all the classes. You can just have someone say, okay, this is your next step. Or here, look at these 3 things, not here's the world of information. Where do I start? It makes a big difference.
It does.
So you like to do all the things. What's next?
So I'm taking a pivot. I'm still the weight loss coaching. I still love to do it. I mean, you give me any social injustice cause and I'm all over it. But I really like the physiology of weight loss and the nutrition science and all of that stuff. But it's also time to start, telling my story and doing some non-medical stuff with that. So I've started my second book, and I want to do some speaking about, the things that I've gone through, not the things that I've gone through, but, the message, what I've taken away from those things, and how I can, how they've helped me become successful. And I just want to help others with that because, I watched some sort of Rachel Hollis thing one time that really spoke to me. She said, it's not your job to show people how to move the mountains, but just to show them that the mountain can be moved. And so for any kid that was in my position that just assumed that they weren't going to be anything, I just want to take that away and replace it with, oh no, there's a whole hell of a lot of chances to be whatever it is you want to be. Because statistically speaking, I mean, my ACE score, are you familiar with ACE scores?
I don't think so.
So there's I don't know the names and the research on it, but ACE is adverse childhood experiences. And so it's a score. And so you can take this test and it's 10 things. So it's 0 to 10. And the more higher your score is, the more chances of, being socioeconomically dependent and just not thriving in life, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And out of 10, my ACE score is 7, which is horrible. But I'm still doing really, really well. You know, I still did whatever it took to get where I'm at. And I never want people to feel like they don't have a choice or that they can't make it there.
Yeah. So how do you do that? Where do you start? With the kids directly, with the families, with the educators?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
That's what I'm just setting out on. I mean, this has been, when I decided to do this, it's been about 3 months. So it's just been, doing some background stuff, outlining my new book, and kind of reaching out to people, because all the podcasts that I've been on until now have been about my program. So this is the first time I have ever publicly said, hey, I'm doing something different. So I don't know at this point. I just know that I want to take it that way, and I want to do it on a big scale, and that's the plan.
I think that's amazing. I'm starting with the kids because I kind of want to make that same kind of transformation as well. But for me, I feel like I can have the most effect when I work with the kids directly, because within the school system, though, no matter how well-intentioned it is, there are limitations.
Sure.
And with parents, again, no matter how well-intentioned, there are limitations. So I figure if I can just get my hands on the kids and do the best I can with them, that's where, at least starting out, I can make the most impact. Yeah,
I would definitely love to speak with high school students and college age, but at the same time, I also have identified a huge population of people that are just like me, of professionals that are still holding themselves back because of trauma, because of the stories. And so one of the things I was just telling my husband last night, I said, I have 1,000 messages. I just don't know what to hone in on at this point, but it'll happen as I work through all of this stuff and keep outlining everything that I want to talk about. And
yeah, totally. I mean, that's where I'm at. I feel like my message is, though the general idea is the same, it's always changing a little here and there, the words I use to express it. And, it's a process.
Definitely.
But I know you're going to do good things, and I know it's just going to keep going, because clearly that's what you've done.
There's no other choice.
Exactly.
Like a fish, you have to keep swimming, right?
Yep. Any words of wisdom out there for parents who are struggling with their child, thinking, gosh, he's just not going to make it, or he doesn't have what's inside to get it together?
So yes and no. It's all about our expectations, number one. I think that if a child has legitimate issues and a parent has legitimate concerns, there's dyslexia, there's a learning disability, all of that stuff has to be chased. I feel like that is an active chasing thing. But if you have a kid that is pretty average and they're a happy kid, but they don't have a plan, I guess looking at myself, I wouldn't freak out about it. I wouldn't assume that they're going to live in your basement forever. I wouldn't assume that, because I didn't start medical school till I was 27. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I had to get my stuff together, and something had to light a fire under me. And that just hasn't happened for a lot of kids yet. And that's okay.
It's totally okay. And most kids really are going to get it together and make it. What that looks like for every person is going to be different. Yeah. And it may or may not be what the parents hoped, but the kids are their own people. We don't want to create a whole world of duplicate people.
Right.
At least I don't think we do.
Right.
So, anything else you want to leave the audience with?
No, just, do whatever it takes. If there's something you want to do, just go after it and do whatever it takes.
Where can we find you? If someone wants to connect with you or look into your weight loss program or your book.
Yeah, so the book is on Amazon, and it's Weight Loss That Works. You can just Google that. My last name is Hodges, so if you do Weight Loss That Works Hodges, it'll come right up. It's on Kindle and paperback. I'm still a big paperback fan. I love to hold all my books. And then all of my social media stuff is at Dr. Healthy Weight, Dr. Dr. Healthy Weight. And my website is exceptionalweightloss.com. And all of my stuff is there. But yeah, if they want to reach out to me, I'm there.
Awesome. Thanks. I'll put all of that in the notes as well, so people can just see it right there. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing your story, and I'm glad you're going to do it more.
Thanks. Yeah, very daunting, but liberating.
Yeah. So. And it's a story people need to hear.
It is.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
So thank you so much again.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Sure.